The ACC and the Big 12 scheduling is interesting. I'll start with the ACC. A lot of times I pitch these to you to start these out. The ACC, considering a 9-game schedule, it seems like they've already voted on that, a 9-game schedule for their 17-team conference. So, of course, that doesn't work.
Yeah, well, question, TJ. Hold on. I hate to cut you off already, but the math on that is not real. It's not even, is the math in the room with us right now? It's not a thing.
Yeah. It is incredible how we can get on here. And just when I think we're going to have a week where we don't rail on the ACC, because there really just wasn't a lot to, Miami got a good win this week in the ACC against an admittedly terrible SEC opponent. But just when I think we're going to have a week where we can get on here and not make fun of the ACC, they go and completely redeem themselves, right? As Dumb and Dumber says. So the way that they didn't have the foresight. So anyway, what they'll end up doing is one team will literally just play 8 conference games that year to make it work out, which is asinine and makes no sense at all. But that'll be a nightmare when we get to tiebreakers and things of that nature. It really needs to be like one of the bottom teams in the conference that isn't going to compete, that you do that to, like, let Wake play an 8-game schedule so it doesn't impact it. I mean, you imagine letting Clemson, Miami, or Florida State, which I know Clemson's struggling, but imagine letting one of them play 8 games and you basically get you have one, Miami has one more loss because they had to play a 9th game or just whatever. But anyway, they're going to this 9-game model. The lack of foresight to understand that this is the way that college football was trending, because the Big 12 was already here. The Big 10 went here. The SEC has been talking about going here for a while, to not realize that you would eventually need to go here as well. And then adding 3 teams, Cal, Stanford, and SMU, that we thought were going to replace teams that were leaving, which teams will eventually leave. But the idea to go to this now, and it's just a complete cluster there in Charlotte at the ACC headquarters.
Yeah. So as much as it's a cluster with the math, the ACC, and I love to make fun of the ACC, I think the Big 12 is also losing here, TJ. And there are 2 conferences. So if you look at like Torvik or Massey or a lot of these rankings, they would tell you that the Big 12 and the Big 10 are actually really tightly contested this year for second best conference in college football, obviously behind the SEC. And the ACC is closer to the American than it is the Big 12. So to loop in these 2 conferences together kind of sucks and hurts my soul. But we have to, because the Big 12 is also completely whiffing when it comes to scheduling. Can anyone in the country explain to me? So Baylor and TCU have played like every year since 1899, which is awesome. We're going to keep that rivalry. But one of the other longest standing rivalries in college football, this is, by the way, from Cyclone Larry, who's one of my favorite Twitter accounts. One of the other largest rivalries and longest standing rivalries in college football would be Iowa State, Kansas State. What the Big 12 Conference has decided to do, what Brett Yormark has decided to do, and it's one of the very few things I disagree with him on, is to throw out tradition altogether. That's not a protected rivalry. Those 2 teams won't play every year. At least the SEC is going to move to a pod format, where we know that Arkansas is going to get to play Texas every single year. Arkansas can play Missouri, its rival, every single year. Alabama plays Auburn each year. In the Big 12, we have like 4 protected rivalries. And one of them is Arizona State, and they don't give a rat's butt about each other. Kansas State, on the gridiron, hates Iowa State more than they hate Kansas, and we instead made the Sunflower Showdown our big rivalry the Big 12 wants to protect. The fact of this conference, it's the one area where I want to just bend Brett Yormark's ear and say, why are you doing this? It's the one area of our conference where everyone, coaches, fans, administrators agree we should protect the sanctity of rivalries, protect the regionality of college football in the Big 12, of volleyball, of cross country in the Big 12, of whatever have you. Why isn't the concept of the westernmost teams playing each other annually being adopted? Then teams like Baylor and Houston, or Baylor, Texas Tech, Baylor and BYU playing every year. Why isn't that a thing? You think about this. You could build it out into pods, TJ, where now we have the easternmost teams, and you got your Cincinnati, your West Virginia, your UCF. Maybe you throw Iowa State in there and have them play every year. Create rivalries. There's a reason that Rivalry Week has so much pomp and circumstance in college football. The matchups mean more. People want to watch them more. What the Big 12 has done is decided, we don't want to do rivalries anymore. We don't think this is very fun. We think that we're being overshadowed by other conferences. And if we keep doing rivalries, it will dilute the product, as opposed to having Baylor play Arizona, or as opposed to having a year in which we see Cincinnati play Arizona State. I don't care about those matchups near as much as I care about Cincinnati playing West Virginia. That should happen every year. It actually gives West Virginia fans a vague chance to drive to the game. Also, not a very fun drive from Morgantown, but at least they can do it, as opposed to driving to Tucson, Arizona, which they certainly should not have to do. I am concerned with the way the Big 12 is scheduling because they are not. I don't even know if they're becoming cowardice to the idea of rivalries or a rivalry week, but they're trying to mix the pot up so much that it makes zero sense to me why we have to mix the pot. Rivalry is what we love in college. We don't love Oregon playing against Ohio State. It doesn't feel right still. It's not a conference game still. In your psyche, you're like, yeah, they're two good teams, but Columbus, Ohio on November 7th at 11 a.m., Oregon, Ohio State, that's gross. And it is gross. It is what we hate about the modern day in college football. We want those games in the playoff. We want those games in a bowl. And the Big 12 is saying, no, that's going to be a regular season. You don't get protected rivalries, which is almost as stupid to me as the ACC saying, yep, you're all playing non-conference games. And then immediately going to the drawing board. Yeah. And immediately going to the chalkboard and drawing it out and going,
I'll get right back to the video. But first, let me tell you about our friends over at Sleeper. Sleeper is the only app you need on your phone during football season, whether that's college football, the NFL, whatever you are watching, whether you're playing in eliminator leagues, whether you're doing weekly pick'ems, whether you've crashed out of your eliminator league already 3 times, you need to rejoin back in, go check out the Sleeper app. Right now, they're hooking you guys up a 100% deposit match up to $100 if you use our code CFA for college football addiction. You can win up to 1,000 times your money by playing the more or less game with Tom, Cole, and myself on Wednesdays. We'll play that tomorrow. We'll give you the free picks. We'll tell you what all's going on. Make some money with us. Check Sleeper's terms of use because terms and conditions do apply. We appreciate Sleeper for their support.
Wait a second.
It's the meme of the guy with the pizza box saying, we need to find the guy who did this.
100%.
It's exactly that.
Eric Andre. It's yes. There is man, there's such a disconnect, I feel like, from Jim Phillips and the fan bases of the ACC. There's such a disconnect there. And it's not easy to do the 9-game schedule with 17 teams to figure out how you want to do any of it, or if you want to slot Notre Dame in there for somebody or something. And they went to 17, TJ, as we know, because of realignment. They were expecting Florida State and Clemson to leave, and soon Florida State and Clemson will. Give it a couple years. It seems like it's settled down to the point that we're looking at 2030 for their exit. But, Jim, you kind of have to still play football between now and 2030. The math still has to check out for the next 3 or 4 years. You can't just punt it and be like, well, they're going to leave one day. And so I think both conferences have egg on their face a little bit right now with their lack of ability to schedule. Whereas the SEC, may I commend them for the first time on this show ever, they did a good job. They potted these teams out and said, look, you get to play 3 teams every year that you're fan. My fan base, I went to Baylor. My fan base should expect to play either in Lubbock or in Waco against Texas Tech every single year. And you cannot give me a reason why that should not happen.
Well, you may give them some love. Drake, if I had to ask you, the SEC, if I had to ask you what the best SEC matchup has been for the last 2 decades, what would you say? Like on a consistent basis, not just one specific game.
Yeah.
What's been the best SEC matchup the last 20 years?
Am I able to say Alabama LSU, or is that a cop-out?
Well, guess what? That ain't happening anymore.
Yeah,
and so I understand the fairness of scheduling, and I understand that you try and protect certain rivalries, not others. But the fact that we are not getting that annually anymore, like that, to me, that's like the obvious answer. If you said the last 5 years, you might say Alabama, Georgia. But Alabama, LSU, for the that's been, I understand that people are going to say, oh, Michigan and Ohio State. And I understand other people are going to say this game or that game. That's been the best game in college football for the last 2 decades, consistently. Yeah. There are years where it hasn't.
You're right, TJ. I do once again hate the SEC. You're correct.
They don't, but the people that run this sport don't care about this sport. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We can boil that all down to this. Yes, they care about money. They don't care about this sport. And so that's frustrating because rivalries do matter. And listen, I'm not a Bama fan. I'm not an LSU fan. I don't care if neither of those programs ever win another game. I don't care if they never lose another game unless they're playing my team. But I just, to take that away, it sucks. So I needed some, you were too positive on the SEC. I had to bring it back in a little bit. So
hand up, my bad.